In this next section, we see Jesus continually on the move. He makes a circuitous journey that begins and ends in Capernaum. After teaching in parables on the lake shore in Capernaum, Jesus goes back to his hometown of Nazareth. But the people there are unable to believe in him because they keep saying, "Isn't this the carpenter's son? This is just Joseph and Mary's kid." They can't believe that he's someone who should be able to perform such wonders and speak with such wisdom. So he leaves. Then word reaches him that John the Baptist has been killed, and Jesus crosses to the other side of the lake. He seems to be hiding from the authorities that might now come after him. But first, it's the crowds who follow him. So on the other side of the lake, we have the feeding of the 5,000, after which Jesus sends the disciples off in the boat back across the lake, and he follows on his own later in the night, walking across the water. They come to shore in Gennesaret, and the people find him there once again, still seeking healing. And around this time, some Pharisees come all the way from Jerusalem. That's an 88-mile trip, which was quite an undertaking back then. And they come all that way to ask Jesus why he doesn't have his disciples following the law of the ancestors. So after debating with them and explaining his response to the disciples, Jesus leaves town and heads another 40 to 50 miles north, probably hoping for a little anonymity, and reaches the area of Tyre and Sidon. But even way up there, his fame precedes him, and this time a Canaanite or Syrophoenician woman finds him and asks for healing for her daughter. And this is a really key encounter in Jesus' ministry because he's been so focused on bringing the people of Israel to repentance and transformed understanding of what it means to live as God intends. But here we have this woman who's a foreigner. She's from a different culture. But she insists that he should share some of his healing with her daughter too. Jesus even insults her. He compares her to a dog. But she persists and convinces him that just because she's from a different culture doesn't make her unworthy. In other words, Jesus' mind is changed. He has a broader understanding of his own call, his own ministry, because of this woman's bold tenacity. And she teaches him to understand his call in a deeper way. So Jesus decides to stop running from the Pharisees, it seems, and he heads back down to Lake Galilee and sits down to heal people again. We see the story of the feeding of the 4,000, and then Jesus crosses the lake once again. And again, the Pharisees and the Sadducees find him and try to test him, and Jesus leaves, getting pretty testy at this point with his clueless disciples. They're more worried about their stomachs than understanding that Jesus doesn't want them to be led astray by the legalistic teachings of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And at this point, Jesus and his disciples make their way up to Caesarea Philippi, which is another trip, maybe 20 miles or so northeast-ish from the lake. And there is where we see Simon Peter declare, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And when Jesus hears this, he makes sure that they understand, yes, this is the truth, but keep it quiet. Don't speak about these things. This will get us into trouble. He lets the disciples know about what lies ahead in Jerusalem and how difficult a road it will be. 6 days later, Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up with him on the mountain where they witness his transfiguration. And when they go back down, they start the journey back to Galilee, eventually reaching Capernaum, where we encounter the fourth discourse. And this fourth discourse is about the church. So please read Matthew 18, 1 through 35, and reflect as you read or after you read about what do you think Jesus means when he talks about becoming like a little child? Which of these teachings and parables are familiar to you? Have you seen them applied or not applied? Where have you seen that? The teaching on forgiveness in Matthew 18, 21 through 35 uses economic debts as an example. This is a very challenging model, I think, for capitalist culture. But of course, there are other situations that call for forgiveness. What other situations can you think of where forgiveness is called for? Are there times when you think forgiveness gets complicated?